Welcome back to the Leading Detection podcast, where fraud fighters come to talk technology. I'm your host, Matt, also known as the Fraud Detection Recruiter. Today, we're joined by Arnold Schwartz, who is the co-founder of Marble. If you haven't heard of Marble, where have you been for the last 12 months? They've been doing some great source, particularly in the open source space. Yeah, they're a next generation decision engine for fraud and compliance. Today, we're talking about fighting fire with fire when it comes to fraud. So AI on both sides of the table. How is it benefiting each player? We're going to talk about open sourcing and the benefit of widely distributed fraud tooling, the value of data, where to source it, what to use, and some quite interesting predictions for next year. Great fun. Hope you enjoy it too. Welcome back to the Leading Detection podcast, where fraud fighters come to talk technology. Really interesting topic we've got today. We're going to be talking about fighting fire with fire, AI on both sides of the fraud battle, and why it's important that we need to keep up in this battle. And who else better to join us today than Arnold? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be good fun. We've had a good couple of chats preparing for this, and I think we're going to have an interesting talk. Yeah, we're talking about fraud detection and keeping up when we talk about AI. Why is it important now? Why is it front of mind?
Well, everyone's using AI right now. I mean, even your toddler is using AI when they have an assignment at school. It's getting crazy. And obviously, the first ones that took AI into their own hands are criminals and fraudsters. It was the easy way for them to up the game. So the question is now how we balance the use of AI on the fraudster side compared to what AI is bringing on the table on the fraud fighting side. And also, I mean, it's changing the market a lot, changing the way people are behaving, changing the way payment are processed, changing the way people are expecting to answer to some very simple questions. So it's a complete overhaul of the way we used to work, probably not even 3 years ago. And it's very different depending on the business you're in or the type of fraud you're exposed to. You can see obviously a lot of APP fraud in payment. You can see account takeover. You can see false KYCs happening a lot of time. But the same thing is happening on the merchant side. I mean, false purchase, return fraud, all of that is fueled by AI, and it's getting easier and easier to be managed. So the question is, how do we get back on that? Can we do actually something about it? And is it really changing the way institutions are fighting fraud, and what are the benefits that you can derive from AI without actually losing control? Because the way it's structured means that if you're a criminal, you don't really care about missing an opportunity. If you're especially a financial institution, everything is a risk, even what you are doing.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, the majority of people are playing around with Nano Banana and creating funny images and whatnot. Of course, if you've got that mindset, you can think, hey, this is powerful. What can I do with that? And if you're a criminal, then cogs are starting to turn. So to think on the fraudster side first, rather than the fraud fighting, what are we seeing like a rise in? What has this triggered?
The first thing we're seeing is the sheer volume. We went from maybe not tailor-made fraud because it was always an industrial business, but let's say fraud that were humanly managed by some that were quickly replaced by something that is fraud-like industrialization helped by AI. You need a new verifiable identity. It's a click. You need 1,000 verifiable identities. It's still just a click. And it's the same thing when you're trying to scam people. It's the same thing when you're trying to find new options to buy merchandise and not return them properly. You can really change the way and the scale of the way you're working as a fraudster. And the only limitation you have right now is either the speed of money on one side, or the speed of the merchandise and the logistics on the other. So it's it's a different paradigm than a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, you had something fishy, you could put your analyst on that, and they would have time to make the proper investigation and make an informed decision. Right now, if everything goes through human, the impact of the volume managed by fraudsters mean you're gonna get overwhelmed very quickly, very fast.
Has this come from, I mean, COVID fast-tracked everything, put everything online, everything digital, and it became easier? Is this alongside the kind of rise in AI? Has it just been an accumulation of the perfect storm for fraudsters?
It's a combination of things, but it's the fact that it's super easy to you're one person and you can have the strength of 100 as a fraudster. All it takes is a decent model, N8N, to automate a couple of things, a couple of models for generating images, and you can create a whole identities with background, with experience, with everything really easily. So it's a fraudster used to be a person that was doing his business and usually within an organization, or at least more and more in some countries within an organization. Right now, the fraudster is the organization by itself. So they went from artisan to, let's say, industry tycoons pretty much in 2 years with very limited costs. I mean, there's no infrastructure to buy. There's no complexity. AI is making it so simple that basically when you're stuck somewhere, the AI itself will explain to you how you can bypass the problem, how you can solve that, how you can generate the proper code in order to do what you're looking for. So it's kind of setting a permanent training for fraudsters to be and helping them find ways into the system.
We talk about 10x cracked software developers. The same's happening for fraudsters, right? Working 996. So we're talking a lot about identity there. Are there any other kind of steps along the process where fraudsters are?
Identity is one of the option. Identity is an easy one because not everyone is using proper, let's say, controls and checks in order to fight AI properly, or at least to ensure that you're not facing AI generated images when you're onboarding someone or when you're asking for proof. And it was an easy thing to start with. It took some time because the model took time to generate proper images. But then again, even with bad images, you can see fraudster being fairly successful at, let's say, making that fit with the story, making that fit with the global scam they are generating. And you've seen people falling for scams with extremely badly generated images. So models are helping, but it's not something that's fully new. What's really new is, in my opinion, the ability to have actions behind that. How many times it takes? Maybe 5 to 10 minutes to do a proper KYC on the simple platform. So even if you're creating identities, it takes to you 10 minutes to do the onboarding properly. With AI, you can industrialize that way faster than you could before. You could have 10, 50, 100 channels running at the same time to onboard different apps and to create the proper accounts to prepare for the next part of the scam. And that's, I think, what's really changing in that. We talk all the time about agentic AI, but what's a better application of agentic AI than setting an agent on a website and asking him to follow all the steps that are required in order to validate an account. That's something that they are really good at.
Just learning the process, learning the steps.
Learning the process, I mean, making sure that the answers are not always the same like in a script, making sure that they have, let's say, random steps in the middle due to the the non-deterministic way of working of those agents, which is blurring the message, which is making it harder for the final recipient to check what's fraud and what's not. So yeah, and we're talking about onboarding, but it's the same thing when you're doing purchases. It's the same thing when you're just trying to connect with people on Facebook in order to run scams. It's super easy to have hundreds and hundreds of threads in parallel with a properly configured agent. Something that was a lot more manual, not even 2 years from today.
And it's just evolving, right?
It's evolving probably faster than what can be catched at that time in order of sheer volume and the ability to adapt to new circumstances and new systems. And also it's prospering in a very fertile ground. Everything around us is driven by social media, is driven by huge platform pushing content. And this is a huge facilitator, not only because the platform are not really fighting fraud, let's be honest, and they are deriving a significant amount of money from those frauds, but also because it's getting easier and easier to reach more people, to finally target those based on what they did on those platforms before. And if you can have a super, super precise ad on selling furniture on Facebook, you can do exactly the same thing when you're trying to shield the latest crypto scam. It's no different than that.
So it's not necessarily getting more sophisticated, more just volume, or is it slow? Is it getting
you have an audience that is better defined, that those platforms are helping you reach, that you can target very precisely. That's one thing. So that's the mean. And the tool you're using is the AI in order to contact as many targets as possible, to drive the discussions, to ensure that you keep them hooked all the way with the proper proof, the proper, proper documentation and so on that you can generate on the fly, which is something that was very manual before and that you don't need to do manually anymore. So it's a combination of those two that is driving the storm right now. It's reaching more people precisely, knowing who you're reaching, and making sure that they are the proper targets, and making sure that you can reach all of them with very little efforts and very little manual work on your side. It's a mass business. The more people you can talk with, the more people you can try to embed into your business, the more likely you are at getting the money in the end, or getting what you're looking for as part of the process. That's the true industrialization.
But there's so many options for them as well. So I think if I had an Instagram account, Facebook account, YouTube account, Twitter account, email, WhatsApp, there's so many options for me as well. And then the sheer volume is just so much easier now, right?
The social media is a huge vector. There's a lot of different social media depending on what are your age category, your professional vertical, the country you're in. So even that is kind of a split between the different targets. And then within those, you're so hooked that they know a lot about you. And the true business of those platforms is basically reselling this data in order to provide you with well-targeted ads or well-targeted selection to receive offers. It wasn't built for that originally, but it's helping a lot for to prosper, especially since instead of using AI to fight fraud on those platforms, you have a lack of general interest about those topics, a lack of responsibility, a lack of accountability. Even if we're pushing for more accountability in the EU right now towards those platforms, there's a lot of pushback first. Secondly, I think it's from their priorities, it's very, very, very far from the top. And there's a huge pressure from different states to avoid any type of accountability on what's published on those platforms.
Yeah.
Also, in other geographies, there's a stronger shift toward accountability. We see it in Australia, we see it in Indonesia. In the end, those are such efficient vectors for fraud and scams that no matter the level of detection that you're going to be able to put on the other side of the balance, if you're not tackling the subject, at least at some level of those social media, you're not going to be able to fight the wave.
This is slightly off topic, but would a KYC setup system for social media, would that solve a lot of problems? The tools are there, right? We're using it in financial institutions.
It's an option. I don't think it's a very realistic option. First of all, if you're pushing KYC for social media, it means that someplace, somewhere in the world, there's going to be social media that's going to strive on the lack of KYC.
Right.
Even in regulated services, you see that all the time. That's one thing. Second thing is, even if they are doing a KYC, they're gonna do that pretty much like porn websites are doing it. The lowest cost, lowest level of security, lowest barrier to user. So it's gonna be a couple of clicks, and it's gonna be fooled by pretty much anything you can throw at it.
Yeah.
So not that much on the KYC part, or at least I'm not a big believer of that. But I cannot fathom that with the level of sophistication of what you can do with AI right now, you're not able to raise an alarm every time there's a new ad that's posted on your platform or a new message that's pushing for specific types of contacts, specific types of investments that are thriving on those media. I mean, it's detectable right now at scale without any way to say it's not possible. You just cannot lead with that right now if you're a large platform managing millions and millions of users and say, we don't have the means for detecting scams. It just doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah. So what is being done? So we spoke about how fraudsters are using AI, and we've started to touch on what could be done, but what is changing on the fraud fighter side? How is AI benefiting the fraud fighters?
So it's helping on a broad range of topic, and we're getting new ways to use AI every day. But it's helping obviously on automation. I mean, checking more and more alerts automatically, making sure that it's, let's say, reasonable or not, helping on both the detection and the investigation. That's the first level of use of the AI. The second level of use of the AI is fighting fire with fire, creating honeypots for fraudsters that are driven by AI, impersonating legitimate people and trying to push fraudster to indicate what's the account or what's the true beneficiary or the true origin of the funds. And that's actually upping the cost for the fraudster, and is very significant. And the last thing is that it's progressively removing the human factor on the counterpart. So using AI helps you manage more alert, more types of alert, and being more efficient at detecting what's fraud and what's not. To give you an example, in a lot of systems, even if they are properly configured, you tend to have recurring alerts, same type of alerts for the same types of customer on a regular basis. You get those alerts. If you're a human, first time you're going to look at that in detail. Second time, you're going to look at that in detail. The 15th time, you're just going to check maybe the name, the type of the alert, and you're going to say, okay, it's a false positive. I'm going to close that. And because it's human, you're not going to look at the big picture because it takes time, because you've seen that 14 times already, and the 15th time is very likely to be the same. And maybe it's going to be the same, but also maybe something slightly changed. And because you're so overwhelmed and so used to the same alert, you're not going to notice that. AI doesn't care about that. When you ask them to review something, they're going to review it fully and completely to the end, even if it's the 15th time they receive that in a single day, because it has no value of the time. It has no cost behind that, or at least something that's not truly limited. So you can do that very efficiently, and it's helping a lot. See the new patterns, indicate if something changed, help detect testing on the service you're providing, and respond accordingly.
But humans still in the loop, or are you a bit more on the side of?
Depending on the business you're in.
Okay, go on.
It really depends on the business you're in. In regulated businesses, at least on that side of the Atlantic, human is very much in the loop in a lot of cases, at least for regulation reasons mostly.
Yeah.
On the other side of the Atlantic or in other countries, more and more institutions are putting DI in the driving seat for fraud management. It's hard to say that it's not performing well. I'll be far-fetched for that. It's performing really well. You just have to live with the fact that in a couple of percentage, it's going to do something completely stupid. But is it really different than the way humans behave, and that the way your potential pool of analysts are going to behave when you feed them hundreds and hundreds of alerts every day? Probably not. It's still a bit hard to measure right now, but as the usage is growing, it looks very similar or even better than what the humans are doing in terms of efficiency and in terms of coherence of the work on a regular basis.
Yeah, I just feel like the bar is going to be so high. The scrutiny is going to be super, super high, and it's only going to take one error from an AI system that will put it back a few steps. A human makes an error, oh, I apologize, I take responsibility, we move on. Whereas
Something that to give a very nice example, you've all seen the scam behind false merchants that were running in on different payment service platform in Europe. Basically, merchants were onboarding the platform, and the day they onboarded the platform and started accepting payment, the website completely changed, and they started pushing everything else.
Yeah.
When you're processing that through human checks, it means that the human has to go check the website, check the change, check if it's indeed in contradiction with the terms and condition, and follow a specific series of steps in order to make sure that you can or you cannot process the payment.
Yeah.
And even with that, it means that you would do that when you get an alert, and not before and not after that. With the AI, you can just ask the AI to check the website every day if you want to, or every 2 hours if it's even that important. Check for anything related to forbidden merchandise, change compared to the original mission or business the website was in, change in the CGU, stuff that would take hours on a human level to do that. It's something that is so easy to automate right now that it should run those types of business a lot harder. I mean, at least when everyone is adopting that. But from ready right now.
Yeah, so adoption is another topic.
I mean, financial institutions are big, complex entities. Bulk of the transactions are going through tier one banks and very large players, especially on the PSP side. You cannot change everything in a single day. There's very deeply rooted processes, like systems behind that. That takes a lot of time to be changed, unfortunately, when they can be changed. But we can definitely see that the whole industry is going into that direction. The same way everyone embraced selling online 15 years ago, probably a bit more than that. But for some institutions, it took them 10 years. Other institutions, they were able to do that in a couple of months. It's exactly, I'm seeing exactly the same thing with AI, except that it's getting faster and faster. Adoption is a strong driver for the objectives within different organizations, which is good and bad. It's good because it's forcing them to look at the topic and see what they can do. Um, it's bad because AI is not a goal as itself. It's the result that you want to drive from AI that is the goal. And some of them tend to forget that.
Yeah, AI as a tool, exactly. And when we talk about tooling, what are your thoughts on open source and widely distributed tooling?
Um, I don't know if you've seen that meme picture of you've got Lego bricks on top, one on top of the other, and you've got a very small single brick at the bottom that's holding everything from the pyramid.
I've seen
And
a
that
few
little
versions of that
brick
recently.
is the unpaid open source maintained by someone in its garage. And basically, it's holding the whole.
Yeah.
And that's exactly true about a lot of solutions on open source. It's holding a lot of the infrastructure that you're using right now. It's probably underfunded and overused compared to the amount of money we're putting into open source. But the truth is, it's the best way to cover a need and to make it as easily available to everyone, no matter their ability to pay or not. And we see that with AI, we see that with a lot of infrastructure. Um, Open weighted model for AI, open source solutions in the software business, it's helping the adoption. It's driving adoption towards companies that would probably take way longer time in order to adopt those solutions if they had to pay for that. With open source, you can install that on your side. You don't have to ask anyone to go through any sales process to pay a recurring fee on anything. It becomes part of your infrastructure. You can tinker with it. You can get feedback on that. You have access to usually huge communities helping you on the different use cases and technical topics that you can have. It's a great way to make sure that a service that's broadly needed is accessible, at least a first version of it. Behind that, there's another business model. If you have an open source solution, it means that you have companies behind that that could sell support, professional services, additional integrations, and so on. So it's also driving the business as a whole. The brick itself is super important and still, in my opinion, probably very underfunded.
Yeah. And is that the case with fraud as well, with fraud tooling? Is there any kind of open source bricks that are holding up the rest of the ecosystem?
There's a couple. You can see fraud solutions in large language models detecting abuse or detecting scams in text, for example. That's one example that comes to mind. You have at least a couple of KYC, KYB solutions that have a base of open source that they are using and offering as part of their business. Something I'm very well aware. There's also, in our case, Marble has also an open source version. We're doing transaction monitoring, so it helps company set up a first layer of defense against abuse on their system, whether it's money laundering or pure fraud, and helping them set up something that's very efficient within their own infrastructure. And that's key for us because the fight against financial crime and scams is linked to the weakest point in the system. So the better the whole system is, because everyone's adopting solutions, whether it's us or competing solutions, doesn't matter. What's important is that everyone is getting equipped. So we're lowering the bar for smaller financial institutions, helping them use open source in their system to detect those, and everyone benefits from that. And when they grow and where they need more complex solution, then comes the licensed version of just as there comes more advanced modules in other solutions.
And using open source, does that make you more more adaptable to change? Are you able to evolve with the change in fraud attacks, or is it not so? powerful in that
It's
situation.
it's not directly linked to open source, in my opinion. It's mostly linked to the way we've built the solution on our side.
Okay. Yeah.
We built a solution that allows you to bring any data into the system,
Hmm.
um, which is super important for fraud fighting because you only get as smart as the data you're using
Yeah.
to detect fraud, and the data is very different depending on the business you're in and where you're at. So it's hard to have a solution that encompasses everything and have native connectors with everyone on the market. It's almost impossible. So instead of doing that, we created a solution where you can bring any data you have in the format that you have into the solution to feed into the detection. So if you have a very specific, I don't know, KYC provider in your country and no one else is using, you can still use that with Marble. And the
Yeah.
same thing goes if you have someone that's helping you detect false email, abuse on your app, device fingerprinting, and so on. You're not locked with anything. You
Mm.
can use your provider, you can switch your providers. Um, so it's helping us provide a solution that allows our customer to be more efficient at fighting fraud, but also avoid having vendor locking on their side because the value of the data is changing over time.
Yeah.
Some solutions are super efficient at some time. And then you could have, for example, just a change in the way the mobile operating system are structured or pushed onto the new phones.
Hmm.
And they can become blind from one day to another just because, for example, Apple pushed something new on.
Yeah.
And that means that organization using third-party data must stay agile in moving towards different providers to gather those data,
Hmm.
which means that when they are processing those data, they need to have a solution that allows them to change very easily from one provider to another. And that's part of what we do.
Yeah, and you mentioned data there and the value of data. Because in theory, fraud could be solved if everyone just shared all the data and everyone had all the data points. But it's obviously there's a lot of third parties that are sharing it. So what tips would you have about where to source the data, what to use, what not to use? What would you suggest there?
There's no unnecessary data, to be fair. I
Okay.
mean, depending on the fraud you're facing, a data that had no value could become very valuable very quickly.
Hmm.
Um, I'm talking about, for example, online stores. Even detail on the product itself could change a lot in the way you approach fraud. So what's important on the data is, do I have them available? That's the first question. And the second question is, do I have to pay for those?
Yeah.
The first thing is usually something that can be managed internally by mostly technical constraint. You can create data lakes, you can try to gather as many data as available, and at least keep them in storage until they are useful for your fraud detection,
Mm.
with the limitation on personal data and so on. But apart from that, I mean, if you have a history of what you're selling on your website, for example, super important to keep that. So if you are training a model, for example, 2 years from now, you
Yeah.
can use that history and that's
Mm.
going to become valuable. On the paid data, it's a question of right moment, right time, right necessity. You want to have the bare minimum to take the proper decision. And if this bare minimum is not sufficient, then you're going to buy additional data based
Yeah.
on that. So it's important to have a solution that allows you to have the ability to do sequential purchase of the data based on your needs.
Mm.
And that's one of the big challenge right now is knowing when you need to get additional data. Um, the usual strategy is a blanket purchase
Yeah.
or to have something that is very progressive, but also means very slow. If you have to
Mm.
call 10 API in a row in order to gather additional data, then you're not sub 500 milliseconds respond to your customer. It's never going to happen.
No.
So there's a delicate balance here with the data. If I would go a bit further on that, I think the best data is the open data.
Hmm.
Same way as the best software is probably built on open source, the best data is the one that you can access freely and easily.
Hmm.
And
What kind of data are we talking about there?
something as simple as company data changes a lot of businesses. If you have to pay for data linked to the company you're onboarding or linked to the business you're processing, it's really impacting your business model. It has a huge toll on your efficiency. Whereas if you can gather those data, it's way more efficient.
Yeah.
But if you want to go further than that, you could have the logic behind in which country is the IP affected to. You could have topics like geolocation. You could have topics like company reputation. All of
Yeah.
those are data that, depending on where you're at, you could have openly or not.
Yeah.
And it has a huge impact on your business. And I think in the global fight against fraud, which is it's a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
And in the global fight against fraud, one of the things where states should have a role is to make sure that the data is more easily available, because the fraudsters are accessing the data. And the one that should be using the data to make the proper controls are having more difficulties accessing it. Right now, your email is probably on hundreds of different leaks with your account number, with your age, with a lot of detail on your preferences, what you're doing, your activities, and so on. So the fraudsters have all that.
Yeah.
On the other side, when you're operating a website or when you're operating a financial institution, you have no idea what those are. So it means that you have a huge difference and a huge lack of equilibrium between the data you have on one side and the data you have on the other side. And it's shifting the balance a lot. It's a very political topic, but it's also a very important one. I mean, the transparency is clearly helping a lot the fight against global scams. And if the states really want to do something about, against that, there's an easy lever.
Is it as easy as that? The regulators kind of stepping up and saying, "Hey, more of this needs to be open data."
It never is that easy. First of all, it takes political courage to change something like that. You could have several companies that are selling those data and are making a living out of that. And also the data is usually not necessarily accessible by the state. So it means creating the means to centralize the data, to share it, to operate the system with the proper control to ensure that only the right people can access this data or not, or depending on the way it's structured. So yeah, there's a political investment, there's a financial investment to people in that. And there's a balance to be found between personal data and the data that you want to expose. In Europe, we're very, very focused on personal data for very obvious reason, and I'm personally very happy about that. It's a delicate balance to find and to ensure that financial institutions, the other side of the scams, have the ability to access the proper data, at least to have a fighting chance against those that are gathering unlawful information about the targets.
Yeah, and everything's changing so quickly. How much of an issue is outdated data?
Is data really becoming irrelevant or old at some time? Not sure. In some cases, yeah, it could be, but the likes that you did on your Instagram accounts 2 years ago, still have some value. The list of friends that you had on Facebook 10 years from now, and you never logged in on your Facebook account since then because you don't use that anymore, that has a lot of value. I mean, imagine driving a scam, impersonating a long lost friend that you have never seen since then. Super efficient.
Yeah. Wow.
So data gets old, but data can be still very much be used by fraudsters. I mean, some data never changes. I mean, an old address, an old phone number still has something that you can use
Mm.
for new attack vectors.
Yeah.
It's the question is how you use that.
Yeah.
Uh, for an institution, the data gets old when it's out of the scope of the fraud fighting they're doing or the benefit they are getting, because it's the law. You're not supposed to keep data that you're not using for the target purposes that you declare to the end customer.
Mm.
For a fraudster, 5 years old data, 10 years old data, I'll take it. It's
Yeah,
worth it.
they have no rules. They've got no constraints. They can do with it as they please.
It's super. It helps making that relatable for the scams. It helps making them likable or even probable to the victim.
Yeah.
And what's more efficient than to get into the daily life of target than to use properly refurbished data that they probably forgot about, but
Yeah.
are still relevant in their current life.
Probably even more so, because it's kind of like, well, how did you know that? You must know me if you know
Yeah.
that.
Remember what you told me 5 years ago again in the cafe in Copenhagen?
Scary.
Yeah,
And then
super easy.
you can create a whole narrative, pictures,
Super easy.
videos, anything around that. It's
That goes down to the true weakness in the current world of scam and fraud. Who's the true weakness right now in the current world of scam and fraud? It's the user, it's the person, it's the individual who's gullible for the fraud, who's falling for it. It's the individual, and I'm not pointing finger. I mean, it happens to everyone, even
yeah,
the ones that are working in fraud every day. Sometimes it
yeah.
gets past their fingers, and it's and they're losing something because it's so efficient. And
But
that's
it will never happen to me.
yeah, no run. Happens to
Exactly.
everyone.
That's the problem.
Yeah, there's no shame in that. It hurts, but there's no shame in that. And um, it's it's the part that is not um, manageable by technology. That's the true weak point. If you really, really want to connect to a bank and do a transfer to a new third party, even if they know it's very likely to be a scam, if you're pushing strong enough, they're going to let the transfer go through. And a lot of people don't want to believe the banks or don't want to believe third parties when they want that it's very likely to be a scam, because they're so into the discussion, they're so into the scam itself that in their world it's very legitimate. It's super important for them to move forward with the scam.
Yeah. Are false positives an issue here as well? Say if you're sending money to friends quite often and you get alerts all the time. So you say you switch to a digital neobank and you just send money. You don't have cash anywhere. You're just sending money everywhere. You're paying for your hairdresser, everything, and you get a notification all the time. It just becomes, you don't even recognize it anymore. Is that an issue?
That's one way to see it. I mean, people want less and less barrier. Instant payment is everything right now. People are very used to that, and they expect the payment to be instantaneous. So anything the bank is putting in your way to make payment less instant, to give them time to think about that and to check whether it's likely fraud or not, it's bothering you more than anything else.
Yeah.
It's because you're not seeing the other side. You're not seeing the risks you're taking. You're not seeing the impact that could happen if you're falling for a scam. All you see is that every day you're doing transfer, you're doing card payments, and you want to spend as little time as possible on that, because who enjoys that?
Yeah.
It's just a pain. So it's an administrative hassle. It's usually not a very great interface.
No.
I'm just gonna disagree with you on one thing, is that it's not moving to an online banks do not necessarily means that the protection is going to be lower. On the contrary, I'm seeing more and more large online banks having top level fraud detection capabilities and super smart features to help customers fight fraud and scams. I saw the Streetwise feature from Revolut.
Yeah.
It's super smart. I think it's one of the great idea in the business of the last few years. Same thing when Monzo added to their app. Are we talking to you right now?
Yeah.
And that's funny because it's in the end, if you're looking at what really works, it's not super complex, super advanced systems. It's focusing on the weak point, the human. And if you focus on the weak point, you can be much more efficient at fighting fraud. Because who's gonna be the best person in the world to know if it's in line with its usual, let's say, behavior or not? Is the one that's actually doing the operation.
Yeah, absolutely. We could probably carry on. I think there's so many more angles we could talk about, but we will have to save them for next time. But I can't let you leave without predictions for the future. So we're looking turn of the year, we're going into 2026. What do you see in the space, especially AI and in fraud fighting?
So let's do 3 predictions for 2026.
Let's go.
For the first year, there's going to be less work done by human compared than AI in terms of investigation. AI will take over on the investigation part, at least for the level 1. That's prediction 1. Prediction 2, the pressure on social networks will increase 5-fold, and some of them will start taking measures to fight the scam epidemics, because it's going to be a life and death situation in some cases. Third prediction, it's the small things that's going to win. It's the tweaks in the application, the tweaks in the website that's going to really change the way people are gaining confidence again in their financial institutions, more than creating a super smart fraud detection engine. It's going to be the feature, the design, the way you're reworking your application that's going to help you fight scam more than anything else.
So fraud teams are going to become cross-functional product
Team are going
UX.
to be designers.
Well, long live the designers.
Or at least they're going to have a designer in the team. I truly believe that it's going to be a game changer in the next few years, when banks, financial institutions realize the power of having the right message at the right place in the application, instead of something that is derived from Excel 95 as a validation screen. It's going to help a lot.
There we go. You heard it here first. Hot role for 2026 is going to be the product manager for fraud detection and the designer for fraud prevention as well. We'll come back to that. But it's been an absolute pleasure chatting this afternoon. If people want to catch up with you, hear more about Marble and what you've got coming up next year, where can they keep up?
Check us, checkmarble.com. Happy to have a discussion about it. Thanks again for the invitation, Matt. It's been a blast, and looking forward to next year.
Yes, good fun. Anything happening early next year? Any events? Anything of note?
If you're in Amsterdam, we're coming for you in January. Reach out to me, and we'll set up a very nice invitation for the beginning of the year.
Awesome. And you're in Paris, right?
Yeah, we're based in Paris.
So if you're in Paris as well, maybe you want to talk fraud, you could reach out. But it's been a pleasure today. Thank you very much. And to listeners, until next time, ciao for now.
Thanks a lot.